Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, the 2nd of December? Interesting. Okay, and it's about 5 o'clock UK time. I am about to have a bit of a wander on the internet. Firstly, looking at some news, but then also looking at some other things. I don't know if we've got enough time. Let's have a quick look. Bum, bum, bum. We'll have a look at the papers, shall we? Oh no, you're not picking that up, are you? So, yeah, let's have a look at the papers through here. The Guardian in the UK. I no longer check this first, but let's have a look. London Bridge attack. Boris Johnson ignores family's plea not to exploit victim deaths. Oh, God. Yeah, so the man on the left was working in rehabilitation of offenders, and it looks like there was some sort of a conference happening, and he was trying to, that was his job, to help rehabilitate offenders. Don't know who the other person is, but ex-convict for terrorism, looks like killed 2 people. But yeah, so the general feeling is that Boris Johnson, it appears, has ignored the families of the first victim. I can't remember his name, but they said, please don't use this incident to call for tougher prison measures, because my son was all about preventing that, was rehabilitating people. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but that's another bad thing happening. Prince Andrew, BBC to screen interview with Virginia Giuffre. Amazon, company pulls disturbing Christmas ornament messages bearing images of Auschwitz. How does that happen? And of course, the other thing is, if you look at that Amazon Auschwitz story, that death camps in general, concentration camps back then, the information was managed by IBM. And so if you look at the role of information management, then Amazon and the Chinese companies and the other American companies are very, very big at managing all of this data, creating a profile for you. And of course, during the Holocaust, you were split into different groups, so disabled over there, gays over there, Jews over there, etc., gypsies over there. So that profiling and that targeting was done in order to then afterwards, that determined what time you were killed. So for Amazon, a company which is doing that type of targeting, in a sense, if you see what I mean, splitting people up according to their different demographics, using biometric data, for them to be doing Auschwitz images is perhaps one coincidence too far for people. The Conservatives, Facebook bans distorted campaign advert with Laura Kuenssberg. So basically, Facebook, who have already said that you can lie, even given that they've said that you can lie if you pay us, they're still banning the Tory adverts. So that is how bad they are. They're breaking even the lies. They've gone beyond lying. Feminist, marriage, Hillsborough. Locking up extremists isn't working in our cash-strapped prisons. I suppose maybe that's saying that de-radicalization would be a better option. Look at this. Oh my God. Who's done this? Is it Steve Bell? Ben Jennings. Look at that. Vote Boris next to a wreath. That's really disturbing satire at this stage in the world. City of London, vote Boris Conservatives, next to the wreath to the dead person. Or not the wreath, but the flowers. Sorry. Into sport. Now, a friend of mine is very interested in a particular subject, so I'm going to look it up. BBC 2012. Britain's first black community in Elizabethan London. By the way, I'm looking at the camera as well. So I didn't know about this, and nor am I going to read it now, because I'd rather try and make sure the magic is happening with the camera. My friend is interested in this particular subject, so it looks like there are turning points, individuals that can be looked up, and it'd be interesting to find out a bit more about where black people were in Britain, and the different historical events with which they had to deal with or be associated, or possibly driven, in the case of various social change turning points. But of course, I don't know that much about them. Let's look something else up. Let's see if there's anything else interesting on here. From a pure, there were hundreds of Africans in Tudor England. This is in the Telegraph. And what's this? It's a book. None of them slaves, Black Tudors, Miranda Kaufman. Of course, Telegraph are quite highly invested in saying that they're not slaves, but I mean, if they're not slaves, they're not slaves. A couple of months ago, the eminent classicist Mary Beard was at the heart of a thunderous Twitter storm. The BBC had made a cartoon film about Roman Britain for school children, featuring a family which their publicity blurb described at one point as typical. And the head of the family, a senior officer in the Roman army, was black. When tweeters and bloggers accused the BBC of political correctness, Professor Beard leapt to its defence, saying that this could have been an officer from Algeria, and then all hell broke loose. Oh, here we go. First, the S word. Of course, this is the Telegraph, so basically all talk of slavery is banned in the Telegraph, supposedly. The Wikipedia article on slavery in Britain discusses the slaving voyages of the mariner John Hawkins down the West African coast. Britain soon became the leader in the Atlantic slave trade, but no, it didn't, unless soon means in the following century. Hawkins's 3 voyages were a one-off, or rather a 3-off, and there was no serious attempt to repeat them until the 1640s. 1640s is long after Elizabeth is gone. Right. So, here we go. Black Tudors, The Untold Story, Miranda Kaufman. Kaufman. I have not read it, but I have to say I may well be seeing if I can get myself some sort of a copy of that, because it looks quite interesting. We also have the subject of black Republicans, so let's have a quick look at what comes up first here. I'm just looking up some books for, some information, because Jeff's interested in black Republicans and black Elizabethans, darling. Okay, so here we go. No, it's not. It's history. This is not being used for political ends. It's just interest. The following is a list of African American Republicans, past and present. Okay, and obviously one could, if one wanted to, try and stir everything up and say, oh, all these people are horrible. But if you were to look at the history and the context, it may well be that... Oh, it's all right. I'm just talking to the microphone. It may well be that these people on this list, that some of them are provide a clue as to how the world really works. People who really were making the best decisions that they thought would be most useful for themselves and other people around them, and in that sense flocking to whichever thing felt like it was going to work. Let's have a look. It's quite a big list, but the question is, can we get it into chronological order? Because if someone's born in the 20th century, then fine. They may be following in the footsteps of somebody from the century before, but let's find out a little bit more about the century before. So, Booker T. Washington. I've definitely heard of him because of the reading group that I belong to. He, I think, was asked to be part of a black bank, and when I read more about it, it was quite clear that the Black Bank was actually run by white people, and run in a way that I think it was the first one. It lasted for quite a while, and it basically stole money from stole people's savings, basically. So the whole role of banking is an interesting one. That's not really supposed to be what we're talking about here, but again, let's have a look at early people. 1861 to 1942, that's pretty early. Robert Lloyd Smith, born in South Carolina. So there you have it. Some interesting stories, and let's catch up soon.